Well, I just want to discuss a little bit of the biology of transformation that we're looking at. Can I share my
Yeah,
screen
go for
there?
it.
And let me see this. I mean, I just kind of threw this together really based on this is a slide from Marina's presentation yesterday that I just thought was really great, that Solar Flashes Solar Flash series is a series of events that is about change and transformation. That inspired me to remember this paper I wrote about. I don't want to get too left brain after being so right brain with Bob, but there was a paper I wrote about evolution. And Charles Darwin, I mean, decided what evolution was. It's organisms having an advantage over other organisms, have the best chance of surviving, and the preservation of favorable variations is what he calls natural selection. So this understanding of competition, of striving, of being better, of, winning out was a kind of orientation towards science and life that developed from Darwin's theory, competition, who's the best. And this is sort of where we're at now based on Darwinian's theories. He said it was natural selection that created evolution, meaning there was a chance mutation, which was favorable for a species to evolve. Now, there was no explanation for this chance mutation. This goes against what Bruce Lipton is saying, which is epigenetics, that we evolve because we intend to evolve, not out of some chance sort of happenstance. But this also goes along with the whole idea that life is an accident, it's a freak of nature, there's no meaning to it. And this was the kind of, was brought in with what was called the Age of Enlightenment, where people realized rationality could explain everything. So then we get into these whole series of science that was based on this understanding that, we can figure it all out. Science can figure it all, just with enough time, we can figure out how everything works. And of course, that leads today to people like Ray Kurzweil saying, yeah, we can capture everything of the human being and put it on a computer. Or it goes back to Elon Musk saying, we can put a Neuralink in people's brains to make them telepathic. So this is ignoring the actual energies that we are, that life, as I say in my book, is life is an emergent property. Life is not an accident. Life is what creation is about. So, but if you go along with this idea that it's an accident, like they developed in the 1700s, Darwin, and then Freud comes in with this whole idea of the death wish, and he's saying the death wish is things evolve towards their origin. So if we came from a dead universe, things move back to their dead nature. But I say, if things come from a living universe, then, and we're part of a greater creation, then our destiny is to emulate creation. So this was a little quote I put together by Vine Deloria, a Lakota Sioux Native American teacher. If you see the world of you as a collection of objects for you to manipulate and exploit, you will inevitably destroy the world while attempting to control it. So in order to maintain the fiction that the world is dead, like, basically life evolved from dead things, then those who believe it to be alive are said to have come to superstition. So all the spiritual people that say that life, there's a greater life and there's something beyond the body, it's labeled by the rationalists as superstition and having no basis in any fact, where consciousness really is the overriding principle of existence, consciousness. So the perceiving the world as lifeless, which is what we're taught in science, like life is an anomaly, there's no explanation for life. The three hard questions of science is, How did the universe begin? How did life begin? And how did intelligent life begin? How does this brain with these neurons and mass create consciousness? They can't come up with an answer for that. They can't come up with an answer for how the universe began. Terence McKenna used to say about science, you give us one miracle, we'll explain the rest. The miracle being the act of creation itself. And we still don't know what happened and how this all came into existence, but there is an evolution. And if you think of the world as coming into being from dead objects, then entropy exists, which means things wind down in energy because, a closed system collapses to a state of inertia, but an open system evolves to a state of more complexity. Life is an open system. So evolution is not based on chance mutation. It's based on intention. This is a quote by Alice Bailey, the Arcane School of Mystic. Evolution is the ever-increasing power to respond to vibration. This is what we're evolving to. This is what. So is that making sense? Are you with me? I know it's a little left brain.
I'm 100% with you.
Okay, good. So we exist in a greater ecology, right? I mean, living organisms are being fed by the environment, and we're changing in response to the environment. So what happened this week was a solar flare, huge solar flare. My theory of evolution is that solar flares, cosmic radiation, whatever you want to call it, and it's what Marina said yesterday, cosmic radiation isn't negative like man-made radiation. Man-made radiation will destroy the organism, but cosmic radiation, solar, galactic radiation gives us extra energy to evolve. So on October 28th, there was an X1 solar flare resulting in a coronal mass injection headed towards the Earth, expecting to arrive later today, later this afternoon. And that goes along with these series of solar activities that have happened lately, these solar cycles. And we are moving into a new solar cycle. The sun is in its early phase of a solar cycle, which lasts 11 years. And the last solar cycle, this solar cycle began in December of 2019. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, actually, this is something that's huge right here that I haven't heard anybody speak about that often, or actually I haven't heard anybody speak about, but it's actually 11.11 years.
Right. So we're in a new solar cycle with this solar flare. Well, it began in 2019, but this was the first real activation of more solar activity. And with solar cycles becomes periods of creativity. The 60s, the 80s, when computers began, 2000, there's, the Renaissance, you can measure solar activity to increase creativity, increase human response. So let me just show you what happened. This is like the solar flare. I love this guy's website, Space Weather News. This is today. He talks about.
Good morning, folks. The coronal mass ejection was late, but it is impacting here now in the early to midday hours universal time. We've got a touch of preconditioning to the.
So this is what happens with the solar. There's this. The Earth is like this little dot compared to the sun, and the sun isn't even the biggest star in the. No, it's a relatively small star. But anyway, as this coronal ejection heads towards Earth, there's new types of influx or impulse or energy in the atmosphere that we have to respond to consciously. I couldn't sleep the other night because I felt all this energy. You can feel that. So this is also affecting our genetics. It's also affecting when they aim directly at the Earth X class, which is the flare, and the flare emits solar particles, produce masses, eruptions of called coronal. Such eruptions send charged particles out of the sun at a whooping 1 million miles per hour or more, but it takes a few days to enter the earth, and it is entering the Earth's atmosphere now and will create aurora borealis in the northern atmospheres. But so here, this is entering, it hits the northern poles first. And it also, a huge solar mass injection could take down the whole electrical grid. We'd be out of electricity, including internet and satellite and cell phones. This is why some people say the electrical grid is the key thing we have to really protect if we're going to maintain civilization as we know, and maybe we're not going to maintain it. So there's that energy coming from the sun every next cycle, and or you could say the earth is sort of breathing. It rests and then it puts out and it rests. So the earth is in the sun, and the sun puts out this thing and it stops and it puts out it again. So it's this resting and influx of solar radiation, but we're also getting energy from the great central sun or the black hole at the center of the galaxy. And when that emits energy, that's another phase of cosmic radiation that affects our genetics. So there's what in evolution they called punctuated evolution. Like there's a series of changes and then it stops and then things start to change again. Like the Cambrian revolution was when flowers suddenly burst on the scene. They don't know how flowers began, flowering plants began, but I think it was because cosmic radiation starts to evolve the genetics and things. And that's also what happens on the galactic level, but it also happens on the collection of local galaxies. You know, we're in a cluster of galaxies, the Virgo cluster. It happens maybe on a great universal level. It happens interdimensionally as well. So all this is affecting our evolution. And I think the reason, consciously or unconsciously, we're doing a Starseed Summit is because we are being hit by more of this cosmic radiation that is evolving our DNA. It's making a change in the organism. So it's about ecology. Bruce Lipton said the behavior in an organism is mediated by the external environment. So people think that it's the nucleus that is about change, but no, it's our interaction with the external world that affects change. F. Clement defines evolution as no less the study of the totality of living conditions of plants and animals in behavior to each other and the surrounding environments. Now, I put together a chart about why species change, why we change. Like, so Darwin didn't say anything. He didn't tell us how one species becomes another. He just said in colder climates, birds and animals adapt. Adaptation is not the creation of a new species. There's no Darwinian theory about how species go from one species to another, like how to, whatever the common ancestor of cats and dogs became canine and feline, or so there's a mechanism of evolution that has not been discussed. And this has direct relationship to what's happening to us as humans now, how our DNA is changing as more cosmic radiation comes into us, how we're upgrading a greater potential. So I put together a chart trying to understand the mechanisms of DNA activation. So I've never really presented this before, but I'll show it to you because you're a friend. Okay. Mm-hmm. And you might understand this. Okay. So let me just, okay. This is my chart of what I call the total ecology. Total ecology. So this little yellow spot here is the biological entity, whether that's a cell or animal. And then this is the normal life of a cell or an organism. It feeds the environment. Its genes react to the field of the environment, and its behavior is then affects its movement and its life. So we're picking up things from the local environment. This is just the earth environment, and that affects the receptor sites on the cell, how it perceives, which affects the genes, which affects the magnetic field, the electromagnetic field of the organism, and that affects its quality of consciousness. But if we get more what I called unknown variables or celestial effects, it affects the morphogenetic field of the species. You know what the morphogenetic field of the species is? It's the collective field. It's the consciousness field of the species. That's the whole thing about the monkeys, that the 100th monkey effect was when enough monkeys washed their bananas in the ocean, all the monkeys of that species, it went through the morphogenetic field of the species. So what we're doing here at the Starseed Summit is putting out energy into the morphogenetic field, and maybe less than 0.1% of the population has ever heard about starseeds or whatever that means. But as we put this out, it's being picked up in the morphogenetic field of the species. So at one point, it's like everyone gets it, you know, but we still have to put it like the word ego, going back to Freud. People didn't know what the ego meant in the early 1900s when he developed those theories, but it was used enough. And now everybody knows what that is. Everybody knows they have an ego, and maybe they're not their ego, but it's in that understanding is in the morphogenetic field. But I'm talking about more than just understanding. The morphogenetic field, when that changes, it actually changes the species itself. There are fields that exist which are causative as potential. Life is guided by these invisible information fields. Morphogenetic fields are beyond electromagnetic fields. The blueprint, the thing for change is not contained in the cell. Your memories are not contained in your brain. They're contained in the field that surrounds your body. It's in the, you know, we have a brain to access the field, but the field is what we really are. And the collective field of humanity is all related on a morphogenetic level. That is about to change as disclosure, as ETs, as beings from other levels of reality come here, and we welcome them, we brace them, because that is the shift of this greater reality into a more substantial way of activating greater potential. So we are moving as we become a new species, which is what Kiara is saying. We activate more of the yet to be activated potential within our DNA, within our cells, within our auric field, within the potentials of neurological perception. We start to perceive more of the world and more of what's possible. So some people, you know, they're still at a kind of beginner's level. They're saying, no, there's no UFOs, ETs out there. How could there be? No one told us about that. And other people are having day-to-day experiences with it. Not like one is better, but there's an evolution to expanded consciousness. And if enough people open up to that, the species can change. And we're in the moment of speciation. We're becoming not Homo sapiens, we're becoming Homo galacticus. We're becoming part of the galaxy because we are galactic beings. So starseeds go beyond our galaxy. They're bringing in information. These, our friends here at this summit, they're bringing more information to add to our body of perception so we can start the evolution to this species that we are now becoming with all the cosmic and activation of the DNA that's happening right now. So that's my little spiel about the evolution of our moment in time. Did you get that?
Beautifully said, brother. Yeah. And I just want to like second what you're saying, that it's actually in my book been proven now that this is a reality. And one of the things would be,
which is a reality, which part?
that okay, yes, so that all the information is not just within our brain, but is outside of us, and we can all tap into it. And what they call it in quantum physics is non-locality. The fact that a piece of like a piece of matter or a proton or whatever you're able to get the information from that particle anywhere else throughout the entire planet or the cosmos in a matter of an instant. So there isn't any, we don't have to travel at the speed of light and take years for you to get the data from one point to another. All data and information is available immediately, which shows that we exist in this Akashic kind of energetic field.
Let me just show, I'll just end with this one thing from my interview with Bruce Lipton, because I forgot. This is, wait, let me just go and share screen, optimize sound, because this kind of sums up the whole species, the whole evolution of everything we are here. Okay, this is an interview I did with Bruce Lipton called The Synergy of Awareness. It's short.
Our evolution is not an evolution of individuals. Our evolution is an evolution of community. That before there were multicellular organisms on this planet, there were only single cells. For billions of years, all there were just single cells carrying out their own lives. But what happened was the cells recognized that they could increase their survival by gaining more awareness.
That's key. You know, you have receptor sites become aware of the environment, but a membrane only holds so much receptor sites. In order to get more awareness, cells had to combine with other cells to share awareness. This is what he got.
But awareness was the membrane. So how do you gain? Well, you can either make bigger and bigger cells, or you can take groups of cells, plug them together, and let their membrane share information.
Right, because a membrane will only hold so much and then it break apart.
Right. The keyboard is only so big.
Right, so you had, we hooked up with other cells.
Okay, to create a multicellular organism. So amoebas created us.
Okay.
But in reality, I am a bustling community of 50 trillion amoebas working in a community, sharing jobs and labor. Why? To create a living entity that will survive.
Right.
Human beings, individual humans, each one of you, each one of us is a cell in a larger community coming together to share awareness to create one living organism, and it would be called humanity.
Okay.
We are not humans until we create humanity. When we create humanity, which is when we all recognize that we're all cells in the same living organism and work in a coherent fashion, we have then created the next level of evolution.
Now, the community of humans are
a multicellular organization which comes together and makes a wholeness. Okay, now, but here's the interesting part. It sort of like jumps like bootstrapping itself. One cell later becomes a human, which later becomes humanity. And when humanity is complete, the earth as an organism completes its evolution. It's a living, breathing, pulsing Gaia. It is now complete. When it is complete, when the cell completed its evolution, what was its next level of recourse?
hook up with other cells.
Right, and when the human completed its evolution, what was it? To hook up with other humans.
Right.
When the earth completes its evolution, we are then at the level of a unity with a voice of unity that allows us to speak as a one, which will allow us to speak with other ones.
Beautiful.
We're here to form a synergy of awareness among our human species. We become one mind, each person playing their individual parts. And that's when we really have open contact, because they're waiting for us to catch up in the synergy of awareness. So the whole local galaxy, or whatever you want to call it, can go to its next level of evolution, which is more awareness, which is the superorganism, which is all of us playing our parts as individual, and the earth then becomes an organ of a greater body. How's that?
Yeah,
Neil, you're
that's-
smiling.
That's so amazing. I mean, and then how far does it go back to source? Does it become a galaxy? Does it become a cluster of galaxies become one? Does it become a universe connected to other multiverses? I feel like it
Yes.
does, you know?
It does. It keeps going. Evolution is nonstop. So
Mhm.
until maybe the totality of the cosmos creates that oneness, then we return, then the source is complete, and maybe it starts all over again.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know. Or
And,
bigger
and I'm
organism.
smiling because I love watching archived footage of Alan.
I did that before no one knew who Bruce Lipton was. I
know.
saw him out at his home, and because he had this little article in this magazine. I said, Bruce, I want to talk to you because I knew he was a superstar. That's my
Yeah.
talent scout
Yes.
talent.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, that was from 1999, I think that is. Anyway, that's my little piece to share here. So thank you, Jacqueline. Sorry to keep you waiting,
Okay, it was wonderful to listen.
and good to
Hey,
see you.
Jacqueline.